Now we'll move on to using effect size estimation software in practice. However, before we move right into software, let's discuss a couple of operational details for estimating effect sizes in the process of a review. When reviewing treatment reversal withdrawal designs, reviewers can estimate an effect size and record it in the study review guide. However, for multiple baseline and multiple probe designs, there are additional modeling options available that review teams may opt to take advantage of in the context of a synthesis. For these designs, reviewers should always ensure that they record the individual data points for any findings that meet the WWC's standards. If you are reviewing single case designs in the context of a WWC synthesis product, teams should wait to estimate effect sizes at the end of the review process. At that point, the review team can consider the data from all the findings that met standards within an outcome domain and, in consultation with a content expert, determine the most appropriate modeling specifications for these findings. When reviewing a single case design study outside the context of a synthesis product, WWC reviewers can estimate an effect size for multiple baseline and multiple probe designs. Reviewers should use the most basic model, like the one we discussed in Slide 6, unless they are otherwise directed by the review team and in consultation with a content expert. Recall that one of the requirements for a study to meet the WWC standards is that the raw data must be made available as part of the study. Typically, the raw data will be shared as plots in the study, although it is possible that the data might be available in tabular format, perhaps in supplementary materials. When estimating effect sizes from single case designs, the WWC prefers to use data in this order. The best choice is to use tabular rather than graphical data provided by the authors in the original study or as supplementary materials. If the data are not available in the form of a table, an author query should be sent to request the raw data from the authors. If tabular data are not available from the study or the study authors, reviewers can extract the raw data from the plots. Module 6 on the Study Review Guide provides more information about extracting data from graphs. Now we'll discuss how to use the SCDHLM software to estimate a design comparable effect size. This package was programmed by Dr. James E. Pustiovsky and some of his colleagues. An online app is available at the URL in this video or in the slides. It is also possible to run the app locally by installing R and the SCDHLM package. Finally, effect sizes can also be estimated using R code outside of the app interface. WWC reviewers are not required to use this software to estimate the effect size. Reviewers should check with review team leadership on their software preference for effect size estimation. This demonstration is simply to ensure that all reviewers have at least one option for estimating an effect size, because effect size estimation will not be available in the Excel-based study review guide. Before starting up the app, it's important to ensure that the data are organized correctly. The SCDHLM app expects that the data are in long format, which means that each row corresponds to an individual data point with enough information to identify it uniquely. The Data tab from the Single Case Design Study Review Guide, where reviewers record raw data, is laid out in the long format. At minimum, each row should have a case identifier, a phase identifier, the observation session number, preferably as a whole number, and the values for the outcome. When the SCDHLM app is first opened, it will look something like this. Your screen may look slightly different for a couple of reasons. The exact layout will vary depending on how zoomed in the view is and the size of the display. Additionally, this software is in ongoing development, and so features may change or move around. The first tab in the SCDHLM is a tab containing important information about the software package and the app. It includes a suggested citation and a link to a tutorial paper. The tutorial paper is another good starting point for understanding the app. Although it is over 5 years old at the time of this recording and does not describe all of the features available. Other information is available by clicking on the links in the menu along the left side, including instructions on how to install and access the SCDHLM app on your own computer, references for the versions of the effect sizes implemented in the software, as well as references for some of the example data. The first step in estimating an effect size is to load your data into the app. Click on the Load tab from the tabs along the top border. The app includes a number of example datasets by default, so if you want to see how some of the features of the app work and you don't have access to any raw single case design study data, you can play around with some of the example datasets. If you are estimating an effect size from the study review guide, you'll need to select the Upload Data from a .xlsx file radio button. Click on the Browse button, then navigate to the study review guide and select it to upload. You'll want to ensure that the File has header box remains checked. Finally, when the file is finished uploading, select the Data tab in the Sheet drop-down box. Next, within the Load tab to the right of the dialog to upload your data, there are options to specify your variables. Select either treatment reversal or multiple baseline, multiple probe across participants, depending on the design. There may be additional options such as replicated or clustered multiple baseline designs. These options should not be used unless in consultation with review team leadership and a methodological expert. Select the appropriate column names corresponding to the case, phase, session number, and outcome value. Finally, you'll need to specify which values correspond to the baseline and treatment conditions in the phase identifier column. Once you've specified all the features of your data, click on the Inspect tab along the top. The software will regraph your data in this tab. Take the time to ensure that your plotted data looks like the original plots. If the data were extracted from the plots, there might be a small amount of measurement error, but it should look roughly similar. It is possible that the plots may not appear in the same order as the original study, so be sure to pay attention to which case each plot belongs to. You can also click on the Data tab to see your data. The 4 columns you specified as the case and phase identifiers, the session number, and the outcome will appear in the first 4 columns. The last 2 columns are values that the app will use internally to calculate the D-CES. Next, you'll want to estimate the model associated with the effect size. Click on the Model tab at the top. The defaults presented by the app represent the simplest possible model. If estimating an effect size as an individual reviewer rather than as part of a review team effort, leaving these defaults selected is the best option. However, we'll review how to estimate an effect size for a treatment reversal design. Ensure that the estimation method selected is restricted maximum likelihood. In the baseline phase box, make sure both include fixed effect and include case level random effect are selected. In the treatment phase box, make sure the include fixed effect box is checked and the include case level random effect box is not checked. Leave the autoregressive AR1 correlation structure selected and the constant variance error structure selected. The app will plot the implied trajectory of the model selected against the data. For review teams checking whether the model makes sense within a domain, this can be a helpful way to visually check that assumption. Click on the Effect Size tab on the top to see the effect size estimate and other information. If you have reviewed group designs in the past or have worked with effect sizes from group designs in other contexts, This effect size might be large compared to what you are used to seeing. Depending on the scale of the outcome and other factors, design comparable effect sizes are sometimes larger than those seen in group designs. However, due to the small number of participants and a larger standard error, these effect sizes will receive a much smaller weight in the meta-analysis than the effects from group designs. Some of this information, such as the effect size estimate, the standard error, and the autocorrelation estimate, you'll need to record in the study review guide, which we'll discuss further in the next module. This concludes the module on design comparable effect size. We have described how the WWC uses the design comparable effect size to summarize evidence from single case designs that meet the WWC standards. We have provided a broad description of the model underlying the effect size and how to use software to estimate the effect size.